All right, guys, welcome back to Practice Underwater. Again, this is your host, Dr. Matt Garino. We have part two of our interview with our mystery doc. We talked a lot last time about really enjoying his journey, about how he's seen a little bit of dip from where he bought the practice a few years ago, some guilt around some missing goals. And now we get a little bit more into the numbers, a little bit more into the direction he wants to take this practice. Again, George here in the building. How are we doing, George?
Good. I've been excited for this outro for a while. Sometimes whenever we record these, we hold off on debating about something until we actually are recording because we don't want to ruin our best take. And so Matt and I haven't talked about this yet, and I do want to pick his brain on this solo versus group theme that kind of comes out throughout this whole two-part series. And if you haven't listened to last week, go back and listen to last week's episode with our mystery doc. We don't know what his name will be yet, but he'll probably have a fake name. And then we'll carry on this discussion in the outro.
A little peek behind the curtain here. George likes to just fly by the seat of his pants. He just likes to go off the cuff. I'm a little bit more of a prep guy. So I like to have things ready, got my notes. I like to talk about the topics beforehand. So getting anything out of him before the interview we actually hit record is extremely difficult. So just know he puts me in an uncomfortable position a whole lot of times on here. So I hope you guys enjoy part two. We'll see you in the outro.
All right, well, let's delve a little bit more into your practice now. I just want to say I searched you online, second highest Google reviews in your town. You're killing it. Over 200, over 250, something like that?
Yeah, we just got to 250. So
nice. Congratulations. I've been stuck at the 115 range for a while now. I'm starting to think it's something about myself. So.
Have you gotten Swell or anything?
Oh, I've been with Swell.
Yeah.
No free ads though.
Oh man. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, no I signed up with them. We just this past year, but I think we got to 160 just by having everyone sort of ask for them and just talk through it. We had a good push, even just with giving them little feedback and stuff like that. We're getting little rewards, but we definitely hit a plateau, just you're sort of at, where it's just okay, there's no more sort of coming in.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, being the proactive with asking, telling them there's a text coming. That's something we don't do. We just kind of let them get it. And,
well, it's definitely easier that way, and it's not as awkward too sometimes.
Very beautiful website. You have a nice auto video that plays right off the bat. You get a very nice feel. You still have good pictures of the team. All the staff bios. So I just thought I'd mention. And you were number 2 in the SEO when I did the normal search rankings in your town. So you're doing a lot of good things. I know in the email you mentioned that tracking marketing ROI is something you're struggling with. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Definitely have heard how important it is to try and track off how much you're spending and just sort of what kind of return it is. I just don't have the bandwidth to actually do it. We have call tracking. I don't listen to it at all. There'll be 1 month where I'll go back and listen to 3 months worth of phone calls and try and get stuff. I just don't have the capacity to try and take that on. And then my team members also just don't feel like they have all these other stuff that they're focusing on, and they get overwhelmed if I try and pass that on to them. So I just struggle with, is my marketing money actually working, and trying to figure out what's working. I don't feel like my pay-per-click is doing a whole lot, but I continue to do it even though just based on what my marketing team says I should do, even though it's probably a waste of money.
So do you have a marketing company you use that runs kind of your whole gamut? Is that right?
They do SEO and pay-per-click. I do all the Facebook stuff and Instagram stuff. That's pretty much where I'm at. And then we're also with a local church and their bulletin, and then also within a local school that's a block down the road. So we market with the high school.
So your marketing company, they're not listening to any of the phone calls for you, correct?
No.
Okay. And are you using the different phone numbers for each of your different types of marketing?
We are, and yeah, they'll send me a report each month, and I just, like I said, I just don't really take the time to look at it. We do have a monthly meeting where I meet with one of my front desk girls, where she goes through how many new patients we had, where they sort of came from. But like I said, that's about where we stop. We don't necessarily get into how much each, the ROI basically on each thing. Like, I also don't know what is each patient worth. So it's hard for me to realize, okay, is that $1,000 that I'm spending a month on pay-per-click actually worth it? Well, it's worth it if you get one big implant case, yes, but is that actually like something that you can predictably track there? I guess it's my struggle.
How much are you spending on marketing a month?
Around $36,000 a year.
Okay, about 30,000 a month.
Yeah, it's about 1,000 on pay-per-click, and then SEO is like 1,200, and just the random stuff through the school.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed about on your practice by numbers, they have like how your new patients are input in the system. If you input where they came from, which marketing, it'll show on practice by numbers. For yours, out of your 69 new patients you saw, that was only done for about 6 of them.
Okay.
So 62 or 63 of them are unknown, you know.
Yep.
So basically that's an easy start, right?
Yep.
When your people up front get the phone call, they put in on whatever software you're using, new patient came from Google, that'll show up on here, or you can run a report through your software, and easy one to kind of fix. At least get that baseline. This is how many patients came from this.
Absolutely.
You know, that's an easy one to fix. And then as far as like tracking how much production you're getting from the different sources, you know, that takes a little more work, but again, not something that's super hard to come by.
Okay.
I would also look too into having that marketing company listening to the phone calls for you. I think that's something I know that my marketing company does, and I'm sure yours, if they're a full service company, they have the capability to do it as well.
And now, when you're saying that, are they giving you feedback on your front desk and if they're not doing a good job, or?
I haven't actually used it for that. I bet if I asked them, they would tell me.
Okay.
That's one of my gaps as a leader, is maybe not really, like, part of me not wanting to know if it was perfectly done. You know?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That's probably what that is. Yeah. So those are some quick, easy things to do as far as that. And I'm sorry, did you mention you are using the different phone numbers for the different?
We do. Yeah. And it's also, like I said, we try different stuff, and then I get lazy as well. As like, I don't want to create a new phone number, so then we just throw in our normal number. So I think it takes just some real action and really wanting to really focus on that. But I know it's important.
I mean, it's something
on the totem pole at this point for me.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You guys are doing well with new patients. Like I said, you saw 69 new patients in August. That seems to be your norm, 50, 60, upwards of 70. You're doing a lot of things right to get new patients. Like you said, you just need you need to get the knowledge going as far as which areas are really working, to be more just intentional about how you design your marketing platform. And I think the little changes we just talked about won't take you too much time to set up. And once they're set up, they're just on autopilot. Also, too, with the phone numbers, you can get services that'll just give you like a little pie graph of, this is how many times on this day this number was pinged. You can kind of see it for the whole month, and it's really easy to view and all that. Overhead, you mentioned you made great strides, got it down 13% from where the old owner was at. You're at 59%. You mentioned your goal was 50. Where is the gap as far as getting that 9% lowered?
See, that's where I struggle, because we track our supply, and I give my budget to my team members of 5%, and we meet monthly. So supply is good. Lab, with me doing implants and stuff like that, that does tend to trickle up a little bit. Or I guess supply, I guess, could potentially, because I don't include the implant stuff in that, which I don't know if I should be including the implant stuff, but I normally just keep it at 5% for just overall, just clinical dentistry stuff. But yeah, that's where I'm sort of struggling with it. My team is pretty much normally around 25%. And then lab is normally 6% overall. So I feel like those are really have been, supply and lab was really where I cut most of it. And I'm struggling to see how to get down to that 50 overall and trying to figure out where to save the money.
Well, there's two ways to lower overhead, right? There's the ways that you focused on cutting costs, which it seems like you've done a pretty good job. I mean, your lab supply quote numbers you mentioned seem well in line. Your staff seems well in line. Doesn't seem like that's our issue. It seems like, and this is something the numbers will point to in a moment, the real solution to that is raising production.
Oh.
Is just out producing where you're at, because where you're at is very much underproducing.
Okay.
In your hygiene department, in your doctor department, it's underproducing in both. And I think with just a little bit of raised production, that can easily get us down to 50. And it's going to be a hell of a lot easier than squeezing another 1% of supply or 1% of lab or switching implant companies to get a cheaper one. That's going to be a lot harder than getting that other number up.
I want to hear what you say about the numbers. I feel like a lot of it, and maybe I'm just being pessimistic about insurance companies, but a lot of the reimbursements are so low on some of these insurances that it makes it really, really hard to, I think by cutting them, it should make it a lot easier to ramp up the production. But I have Dentrix and the software there. It said that I would have done like $3 million in production with our office fees. Obviously, that's not realistic because you wouldn't get every single person to do that. But I guess the numbers too, also, you're doing the supply bill would be a lot lower if you were doing 3 million. Like the numbers would all translate much higher if I was more out of network with a lot of these insurances overall. Just trying to cut how much we're writing off, I guess.
And that's something that definitely jumps off the page on these numbers. We'll start in your hygiene. You have 3 full-time hygienists. Last month they did $45,000 in production,
which is a good month. Yeah.
My one hygienist almost does that much.
Wow.
This is why I knew the insurance reimbursement fees were a big thing happening here. Your hygiene hourly production is 127. That would put you in the 22nd percentile of users of PBN. Your hygiene daily is at 769. That's a 30th percentile. So both how much they're doing per hour and how much they're doing per day is extremely low on the spectrum.
Yep.
And I don't think that's from having openings.
No, I was going to say, I don't think it's from them not working hard and doing stuff. It's just, insurance is just completely killing us.
And not even to mention, one thing I'll say great about your hygiene program is the fluoride. 50% fluoride is extremely high. That one would put you 75th percentile of users. So they're offering adjunct services for the benefits of fluoride, of course, but also to negate some of the bad impacts of the lower reimbursements.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's
so
sort
it's
of
tough.
one of the
It's like nothing. Yeah. It's not really like a human thing. It's easy to train a hygienist. And even their perio percentage at 20% is at 50% of users. So, right kind of where you should be. So it doesn't seem like it's anything they're doing. They're pre-appointing 84%, also pretty good. So let's talk about insurance. When was the last time you audited your reimbursements from the different plans?
So I actually did that right when I took over. I hired someone to renegotiate everything. Took about a year-long process to do that. So I don't know that it was the best overall as far as what happened. But when I have like a chart that sort of shows each insurance company and the write-offs, and some of these we were writing off 65, 70%. And so those were the sort of the 2 first that we cut this year. And we're slowly just working our way towards some of these. But I think that would be one of my biggest tips for anyone buying an office is buy one that's not in so many PPOs so you can avoid having to grind it out and try and have these conversations, because now it's like every day I'm having to have 20 conversations with the patients saying we're going to be going out of network. Well, not going out of network. We still accept your insurance. We can still see you. We'll still file on your behalf, and we'd still love to keep you as a patient, but we're just not going to accept the insurance fee schedule anymore, but we can still see you. So it's just becoming more and more part of my talk that I have to give, and it's becoming one that we're going to have to keep doing because we're just slowly trying to get out of network with these insurance companies. So
What are you telling them as far as like the date of, is there a date when things are shifting?
we are getting out. Can I mention insurance names or
Yeah,
should I?
sure.
Okay. So we're cutting Dynamax, which is basically the umbrella company. That's happening January 1st. And so we created pop-ups for each of those patients that aren't going to transition to one of the umbrellas. And I'm just having that conversation as you'll get a letter in the mail from us. You'll get a letter from the insurance company saying to go somewhere else, but we still can see you, no problems whatsoever. So, but yeah,
Okay, so that's the big one.
yeah. So I think I do have a consultant that I work with, and so they have sort of given me some of this verbiage and some of that stuff. And if it was me, I'd love to cut them faster. I feel like I'm already pushing the envelope a little bit, but next year's goal is we're going to be sort of transitioning. MetLife will be going out of network with MetLife and Cigna, but they'll just get picked up by one of the other umbrella companies, Maverist, most likely. So I'm just trying to slowly transition everyone to a higher fee schedule so that we're not writing off 50% from our UCR, but our UCR, I raised it to the 90th percentile. So it's also relative.
It's a tough thing to go through. Like having those uncomfortable conversations with the people who, may have been coming to this office for years and years, and now this newer owner is dropping their insurance.
And it's definitely interesting, like when it's on a piece of paper and you see, okay, it's going to be 265 people. It's like, okay, whatever. Not a big drop in the bucket. We'll drop down to 2,200 patients or whatever. We'll be fine. But then when you start seeing the patients' names and start having to have the conversation with them, it definitely gets harder. And you're like, man, this is a lot of people that we're going to have to say goodbye to, or not. We don't have to, but they may very well just go see someone that's in network.
How are those interactions on you?
They're getting easier and easier. Like I said, it's mostly just the people that you've done a lot of dentistry on and have built those relationships with. It's like, man, I'd hate to lose them. It's a good possibility that I will because they'll be paying so much more to come see us. But I think that's the toughest thing. But at the end of the day, I understand it's business. It kind of needs to happen because I can't keep seeing all these patients because it's affecting me on a day-to-day basis there.
And I think it's great what you're doing. You're sticking to what's important for you and what's important for your business, and not letting the emotions kind of dictate how you handle the reactions, or even if you have the reactions at all, and not dictate where this office needs to go.
Yeah.
So I commend you for handling it that way, giving patients some notice, having a personal conversation instead of just like a letter or letting a staff member do it. So I think that's really admirable. You're doing it that way.
Thank you.
And I think that can kind of improve a lot of the areas that are, you're coming up short that are showing on these numbers.
Yeah.
We'll pivot to your side. The big thing that's jumped out at me in your numbers were your average treatment plan presented and treatment plan accepted. In August, your average treatment plan accepted was $393. Don't have to tell you that's extremely low. I don't think it was even on the scale of the percentile.
Oh boy.
It was on the scale. I'm just kind of kidding. Being dramatic. But it's very low. Your average treatment plan size presented was $1,200. So that was in the 40th percentile. So again, on the lower side. Aside from the fees, is there anything else you see going on?
Well, I know we typically phase things out, so I'll put everything in the computer, but we'll typically only present we'll talk to the patient and see what they want to do, but we may just focus on quadrant, basically dentistry. So maybe just 2 crowns we'll focus on there, the lower right, or just the fillings first, and then we'll move towards the crowns. It just sort of depends on the conversation with the patient, sort of where the patient wants to go with it. But I know they definitely don't see the whole treatment plan most times, unless they say they want to just take care of more of it. But
why don't they see it?
Well, I mean, I guess that's sort of my own bias is I don't want to overwhelm the patient or give them sticker shock. I just want to start them moving in the direction of starting the treatment, and then once we complete their main focus, then we'll move on to the next and get that next part scheduled and just get the ball rolling overall.
Yeah, I mean that's ideal, and that's how I approach it in some ways too. Is just get them coming back for something, and that's going to give you a chance to sell them again on the other stuff. That's the most important. But that's just like the net, like the baseline. That's like the lowest thing you want.
Yeah.
They need to at least have the ability and opportunity to say yes to everything.
Yeah. I mean, I know we talk about it all, so it's not like I don't tell them about the crown or anything like that. So they definitely know about it all, and it's just sort of like, okay, let's start in this area. I mean, and then work our way towards it overall. So.
Yeah. It could just be like a rephrasing of, you need 3 crowns.
Yeah.
We start with 1, we could do 1 at a time, or you could do all of them.
Yeah.
Or you could, even if you don't do them at one appointment, you can schedule all of them. I think just like
some of the verbiage.
Yeah, some of the verbiage, and just giving them the opportunity to say yes to things.
Sure.
Especially when it's stuff they need. You're not selling them, being a used car salesman with all this. This is, their health and their teeth. Kind of just not dictating for them on what they're going to say.
Sure. Yeah, I'm probably a little passive and just trying to get the yes overall, and trying to make people happy is definitely almost a fault of mine, as I always want to try and make everyone happy. So that definitely could stand out there.
Yeah, because it's tough being told no to your face.
Sure.
It's a hard interaction. It is, but it's something we have to do. This is part of our profession.
Yeah, you can't take it personally.
Exactly, and you want to get to 1.5 million and beyond. You want to take more days off. This is all part of it. I mean, so the things with the numbers, I mean, it's all kind of a theme of that. It's just underperforming. There's the insurance reimbursements. That's a huge part. We'll just go out and say it. But it's also some other things that, you and the staff members can do better.
Yep.
A couple of which we mentioned, the treatment planning more comprehensively. And then, getting that insurance going a little bit. I thought, so there's in the treatment acceptance provider tab, there's the treatment acceptance, which is how much of their treatment plan they accepted, the percentage. Mm-hmm. The more important number that we look at more is the patient acceptance. How many people accepted something?
Yep.
Which you mentioned that was, kind of your main goal. Your 73% was actually in the lower percentile. It was in the 35th percentile.
Wow.
So the percentage of them saying yes to something, you're on the lower end. What do you think as far as like any other strategies in your case acceptance that you could implement or you could change to get them to say yes more?
I think it probably comes down to just slowing down, honestly. Because, I mean, I in my head, I feel like a lot of people are saying yes to stuff, and but if I'm in the 35th percentile, obviously is a little bit lower. So, and I guess that just really even says, if we're still able to do 1.4, 1.5 with such a low percentage, that just even shouts how many more patients we're having to see in order to do that. But I think slowing down probably would make the most sense. And hopefully by cutting the insurance, it will give me some more time so that I'm not having to rush in and out and feel rushed overall.
Definitely.
Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most. I personally really like the dollar scheduled metric because I always like to see, am I growing? Am I kind of, in which direction are we going? We should be at least scheduling more than we're producing because usually some patients drop off. So
I think that's kind of a good place to be. And so when I have a client and they just had a bad month and they're feeling down on themselves, I can always look at their dollar schedule to see which way are they trending. Are they going to have a big month next month? Like, can they cheer themselves up knowing that they're scheduled in a growth trajectory? Or are they ultimately, I need to say, hey man, you got an issue. I know you just had a good month, but you're setting up yourselves up for a couple bad months. And, then they can turn it around. But I think having that heads up holds you accountable as a business owner, where you're not relying on how much money did I make this month. And that's how I know, how things are going. I think you have the heads up one way or the other. I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial.
How is it going with like co-diagnosis? Are your hygienists good with that? Are you using intraoral cameras? What other strategies have you been using?
Yeah, so we actually do intraoral cameras. We do a full set of photos. We have like 9 photos that we take with the shade overall. So I think that's in place, but we do have 2 new hygienists that I'm trying to train. So there's been definitely a little bit of a turnover issue in the hygiene department. So I've had to just feel like I'm constantly training and trying to get them up to speed and do that. And then when they finally get there, then they move away or whatever it is. So it's just, it is what it is. But yeah, I think all the stuff's in place. It's just, we just need to get more consistent with it. So.
Yeah. So do you think that turnover is hurting your acceptance as well?
I would say yes, because things just aren't running as smoothly as they could be. And I bet you if you dialed into the numbers there, the one hygienist that's been there the longest probably would have a higher case acceptance with the patients there overall. I don't know if you can look at that, but that would be my guess.
I see one standout hygienist, so I think I know what it is.
Which one?
I'm looking at this current month. Sorry.
Is it?
I jumped ahead.
So yeah, is the one that has been with me the longest. I don't know if her numbers are actually showing up the best as well, but she definitely takes all the photos, talks to the patients, and my guess is she would have the highest. But my goal is to get everyone sort of on the same page and calibrated. So
what have you done to train the 2 new ones so far? And what are you planning to do?
So we just have different competencies, 30, 60, 90 day, different things that they need to get to. We're trying to do weekly meetings to just go over different stuff, taking photos and just start talking through it. But at the same time, that's where I get tired. It was easy to do the first and second time, but now like the third time, I'm just like, okay, I really do not want to train anymore, and I would just repeat myself. It just is tiring to do it all over again.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating. As someone whose staff fully turned over in the first few months of my owning, I get it. It's terrible.
Yep.
But we know how important it is. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, because they're the ones that spend all the time, and they can actually have the conversation. I can only spend 3 to 5 minutes with the patient, and that should be all that I really need to as well. But if they're not going to have the difficult conversation, or they don't want to have the difficult conversation or talk to them about it, then it's going to make my job much more of an uphill battle.
And they're capable of it. I mean, they're doing the fluoride at an amazing percentage.
Yep.
They're capable of selling things.
Yep.
It's just the getting them motivated to do that also with treatment. Yep.
That's also one of my struggles as far as like just a bonus system and trying to figure out what makes sense. Because I want to eventually get my hygiene team more on commission basis and go in that route. But at the same time, I don't want to cut them below, because if they did that, their hourly would be so low that they wouldn't even be in the competitive range. So I just lose them.
Could you do like a higher of guaranteed base percentage, whatever's higher?
Potentially. And yeah, it just comes down, just more my bandwidth and trying to to calculate all those numbers and do that.
We'll give that to the consultant. That's the consultant's job.
Yeah, just need to get an office manager in place and do that.
Do you feel like you're adequately staffed or overstaffed either?
I think we're probably about right. Moving.
What's your capacity for same day stuff? Could you do it?
I actually feel like that's where we get a lot of our treatment. I mean, we try to do a lot of same day stuff. And I know my bigger months are normally when I do have some of the openings to actually fit in that crown, that extraction graft, just some of the stuff that's actually going to move the needle. So I actually kind of enjoy more of the emergency patients versus just having my standard schedule.
See, it's tough to know because I believe you when you say that, but the numbers say something different.
Yeah. Nope.
And I think it's the fees. I do. But I have to reflect what the numbers say.
Nope, that's understandable.
Your biggest month of the last few, because I just scrolled back a few, was 11,000. That would put you at 50th percentile of the same day treatment. Most of your months are in the 8,000, 7,000, as low as 6,000 range. So that's say 35 to 40%. So you're average to a little below average.
Sure.
Again, I think that's the fees. I think, only you can accurately calibrate that.
Sure.
Just the place I thought was curious. Thought to look.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely comes down to, well, whether we have enough time, because I definitely want to make sure that we're having enough time for our patients that are scheduled. But if there's an opening and we do have time, we're going to be planning on doing it that day. That's at least
nice.
the mantra that I've tried to tell our team, the expectation.
Yeah, I mean, everything the numbers say is just that you're working so hard for this money.
Yeah.
Like, it's just you're seeing a lot of people. You're going on between you're checking a lot of hygienists. It's done a lot of fluoride. You're just working so hard.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be this hard.
And I think that would be great. It really would.
And you got to believe it's possible to not be that hard in your office, in your town.
Well, I know it's doable because, I mean, we have fee-for-service out. We got 2 that aren't too far away from me. So, I mean, I'm in more of an affluent area anywhere. So it's not like they don't have the money to do it. They just have to value it. And I think it's also just getting me to value it. But we're just slowly making steps towards it. But I think it would be so much easier just being in network with 3 to 5 insurances versus 10 to 12 that we were.
Yeah, and I don't see any reason you can't get to that point. Your patient retention, all the numbers are good, are right about average to above average. So it doesn't look like you're losing a lot of patients out the back door. You're pre-appointing 85%. You're doing well with that. You get an attractive website, good looking office, getting lots of new patients a month. It doesn't seem like you won't be able to sustain dropping the bad insurances and still growing the office and not, dropping numbers of patients, left and right.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a very, very healthy office. It's just that you're working so hard and it's such a struggle.
Yep.
And this could easily be, over a $2 million office in short order.
Well, that's good to hear because it definitely, like I said, I just want to get it to the point where what I bought it for, but I don't want to just see more patients. That's not the way to do it overall. Yeah. It's not sustainable for me long term.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're supposed to be in this game for decades, I guess, right?
Yeah, my back's already going out. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, it's more days than not that my back hurts on the ride home, which is not something I'm proud of.
No. I've had that happen actually. But no, I also just like with working with the consultants and stuff like that, I feel like I work a lot more days than they do. So yes, the office is doing 1.5, but what do we work? I don't have, we we've worked 140 days already through August, basically. I know there's some offices that only work that the whole year, and I think we did like 215 last year, or just.
Yeah, let me look. I can tell you exactly. Oh, very
Okay.
good. 218.
Okay.
Pretty close.
Cool. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if that's just me feeling like because I'm seeing so many patients that I'm working so many days, or if that is normal, but I feel like maybe just in the people that I'm surrounded with in the coaching group and stuff like that, they're working way less days and doing similar numbers. They're also sort of more fee-for-service doctors too.
Just personally, you're working like double, triple hard as me and making less.
Yeah, probably.
Sorry.
No,
I'm not rubbing this in.
No, I mean, it's true. It's true. It's just, that's even more of the reason why it all needs to happen. And when my team gives me pushback, because it's hard to have those conversations, I need to tell them, no, this is what's happening.
And it's a lot of testament to you too, because your capabilities are so much greater than mine. You're handling an office that almost has double my patients. Like your capability of doing great dentistry, and you provide a ton of services, like advanced kind of a super GP type services that, it's incredible. That the fact that you're handling all this and you're doing so well and you're so sane with it. And, it's a testament to your capabilities.
Well, thank you.
Well, you said you came on here and you wanted some action steps. I'm going to give you some recapping ones before we wrap up. Right. Just to run through them. The marketing stuff, just easy tracking things, slowing down. I really like when you said that, like really being, kind of catching yourself in the exams and really making sure you're making the most of that interaction and giving the ability to sell comprehensive treatment and building the value in that and letting them see it and letting them say yes, or not. Setting time to train the hygienist, like, even as annoying as repetitive that is, that's so important to your case acceptance, to your treatment planning, to everything. Staying vigilant with that. Keeping up with the same day treatment, seeing what capacity you have for that and keeping after it. And then one of the biggest things, get yourself practiced by numbers or a numbers tracking software. Running a business like this with the goals you have, without something like that, I mean, you're coaching blind here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just so much work trying to run all the reports by myself. It would be so much easier to have a dashboard like that. I think my struggle is, it's overhead. It's adding to the overhead. I know it's so little.
It's $299 a month. Come on, man. Jeez Louise. We're cutting that part. I'm telling the editors get rid of that one.
Oh, that's fine.
Jeez Louise. There's some actions for you.
Cool.
Is there anything else you want us to cover before we bid adieu?
How are you finding, like, what percentile is that? Is that all in the software and stuff like that?
No, every interviewer I've now done has asked this. No, it's our special sauce. Privileged information.
It's definitely a good one because, I mean, that's definitely something that I want to know. And same thing is like, when's the right time to bring on a fourth hygienist? What number, what's the active patient count for that? Because that's something that I don't know. And if you know it off the head, I'd prefer to.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see people throw around numbers like each 250 patients is an extra day of hygiene. But mine is, I would rather have much more capacity open than my demand.
Yeah.
Like we talk about this a lot. Like the overhead of adding a new hygienist is zero, right? There's nothing added. And the amount it takes, you can calculate for yourself, but the amount of patients for that hygienist to see to cover her salary is usually between 2 and 3 a day. So if she's sitting on her butt for 4 hours, I've made money.
Yeah.
Not even to mention the exams I've done on the patients that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of look at it. So I know George will probably give you some more numbers that'll dictate when he's ready because, he's way into the software.
Yeah.
Mine's more of a feeling. I just always want to have more capacity than demand. And if I'm feeling like my capacity is not there, if it's going to take a new patient weeks to get in, if like there's really no holes, I'm opening another one.
Yeah.
Like this is something, it took me a while to realize. I didn't realize until kind of George trained this in me. So I'm in the process of making my 1.5 go to 2 full-time. So it's uncomfortable, and it's like a mindset shift. Come to this realization, and that it's like a no-brainer.
And then I guess to piggyback off that, as far as bringing in another doctor, when is the right time for that?
That's a tougher one. You just got to see where you really want the office to go. If you want the office to really cut down on insurances quick, maybe look at keeping it at a solo for a little bit, and then, a little bit later adding someone in. Even thinking if you could cut your days to 4 instead of 4.5 to make it a little bit kind of a middle ground, and see if that can work for a little while before bringing someone on, getting to 3. That's kind of what I look. I mean, I have a solo bias, so I don't know. I'm biased towards that. I think if you have the capacity to see all these patients, like if done right, you could be making so much more doing it solo.
Well, and you had the headache of having all these issues with their work or whatever, and trying to find the right person that fits your philosophy and doing all that stuff. So it's hard to find that right person, and all the headaches that go along with it, and the decreased pay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's all true, or it can be true. And, I just think it's just matching up your vision to where you are and getting there. I don't know. It's like, it's a tough one to answer. Yeah. Put it that way.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Again, it really sounds like you built an incredible practice with the team you've assembled, and your leadership, and you're holding everyone accountable, and you're wanting to grow. You're willing to invest yourself with a consultant and, your different services. It's a testament to your leadership. It's a testament to how seriously you take all this, how seriously you take your goals, to a fault at sometimes. But thank you so much for coming on and opening your office to this. It was very valuable for me, and it was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate all your help.
Of course.
All right. Bye.
That's it for another one in Practice Underwater.
We are back. I hope you guys enjoyed part 2 of that interview with the doc. We have what's set up to be a little bit of a battle royale, mano y mano, me versus George. Who will come out? Probably the taller one and the more athletic one. That'd be myself.
Are you saying that I have a Napoleon complex?
I would never say that about you, George. For real. So a lot was talked about this episode, kind of where this doc wants to go. Is he comfortable where he's at now, remaining a solo practitioner, maybe dropping some insurances, increasing his production while maybe lowering some overhead? Or is he looking more into a group practice model where he can bring in other docs, grow his patient base? So George, for this doc, where do you stand as far as what his direction probably should be?
Well, I think that's not the way I would go about it. I would go about it in the way of what does he really want? It seems like he wants very conflicting things. He wants low overhead, minimal insurance, or not minimal insurance involvement, but less insurance involvement. And those things favor a solo doc. That's the direction of a solo doc. You cut your overhead, you kind of minimize your growth. And then he was complaining about his minimal marketing. The guy practically does no marketing. And he's like, all of my marketing, have no idea if it's working. And I'm like, dude, you do practically nothing. He does some online stuff, and it's very minimal. And so it seems like his overhead, he's very overhead conscious. And that's a very difficult thing to be when you are a group practice. That 50% overhead goal is not going to happen with multiple doctors. I think for me, it's I got so many conflicting messages, and I personally feel like, I wish I had the chance to, or, we had the chance to sort of go with him on this, but I think he's kind of come to the realization that he's not going to hit 1.8, that number that he bought it at, without another doctor. And I think that still that little menace in him, or whatever you want to call it, the little thing in him that is telling him that, that's not good enough to not hit the goal of which the practice when he bought it, or even surpass it, is, I think, influencing him to lean more towards a group practice because everything he's doing and everything he says he wants is solo, other than the fact that he'll keep saying he wants an associate eventually.
That's an interesting observation. So you're saying it's literally just that number that he has in his head that he has to hit, and he hasn't hit it now in his current model, so he's thinking about another model just to get there.
Yeah, that personally, if just listening, yeah, that's my take. And I guess part of the reason why, like for me, the first thing that I do whenever I hear somebody say they want a group practice, I ask them why. Because I think, or anytime anybody wants a different model than the one that they're in, I always ask them why. And for me, I felt like I wanted why. I wanted to know why he wanted that, because it might have been something that he could totally have satiated in a solo practice. He feels burnt out. He feels like he can't go any faster, but he's still not hitting 1.8. So that to me, and he's working like 4.5 days a week. Like this guy he can't do any more. So, but I think if you were to alleviate that need to hit 1.8, all of a sudden the desire to have a group practice might not be there.
Yeah,
because he doesn't want a lot of the components that involve a group practice.
Yeah, he doesn't want the lower overhead. He's not willing to go there, at least what he said to me. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't sound like he has that appetite for risk that we always talk about for someone who's growing a single doc practice into a multi-doc. You have to be okay with investing, taking less profits early on, having your overhead go up, take home pay go down. This is kind of the appetite you need to have if you want this to happen, with relative quickness and not be spread out over years and years and years. I don't know if this doc has that in him.
Yeah, and that's not for us, but from an observation standpoint, every single decision he's made or everything he says he wants is to cut insurances, cut his overhead, and make more money. Like he's not saying he wants to make more money, but the decisions that he's making are going to make him more money, but that's not and he's like, I'm not really willing to sacrifice my income. It's very, very difficult to go from a solo doc practice to a group practice without sacrificing your income. Like that is the ultimate skill of shifting gears. And it's very, very difficult to not have that little hiccup. Like when you switch gears in a car, you're going to have that little, you can sense it. There's going to be an income drop for a bit. But so for me, listening to him, it just didn't seem like somebody who should go down that road unless they were to really address some of the things that are holding them back.
For sure. And I want to talk about another big theme we kind of see in the dental world these days is that complaining about insurances, insurance reimbursement, and how it's killing dentistry and everything around it. Just hop on Facebook for 5 seconds. You'll see a thread about it, Dental Town, anywhere. A lot of docs think that if they can just drop these insurances, then the practice is going to be fixed and they're going to be loving life and everything's green and happy. I know, George, you have a slightly different view on that. So why don't you talk about that for a bit?
I love dental insurance. I mean, my worst patients in my practice are the ones that don't have insurance. It's, if you look at our revenue per patient, it's so much less. For us, we do what we call insurance maximization, which I think is, so when somebody complains about insurance, and this guy, he's like kind of the exception. His hygienists do very well, so I actually kind of agree with him. Like he needs to drop a couple plans, but I think that idea that his whole life will be better once he drops a couple plans, probably not the most accurate statement, where everything will be better once I drop these insurance plans, because the reality is that you need to use them to your advantage. There are things in there that you could take out, and there are protocols that you can use to maximize your patient's benefits. And for me, my least profitable patient is the one on my in-house cash plan, because they're the ones that I cannot tack on the extra x-ray and charge that out to insurance. I cannot do all of those little things. So if you were to look at, just like 2 hygiene visits a year, no restorative work, which patient would I rather have? I'd rather have a practice full of 97%. Like he said, 97% insurance. I was like, yes, give me that. I want 97% insurance patients. That's awesome. I think I don't get it. And, I take 10 or 12. And for me, my fee schedules are great. And I think a realignment of fee schedules, and he said he already did it, but my guess is he didn't do it very well. A realignment of fee schedules would do a lot for him. And so, breaking some of those contracts, opening up new contracts, you don't have to have an awkward, for me, the idea of having a conversation with every patient about how you're going to drop their insurance, it seems really weird to me. I would just do it And, if they have any questions, ask about it, but like, I think he would have probably had better retention. That I don't know. I don't want to say one way or the other, but I think for me that like insurance complaining is like one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. Like, this is a shift you've made in me over working with me the last few months. I had that typical viewpoint that everyone does, screw insurance, they're killing everything. But now in my own practice, I would take an insurance patient any day as a new patient more than a cash patient, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I had a Groupon running for months, got a lot of cash paying patients. Selling to them was extremely difficult. Getting them to stay and accept treatment, it's so much easier on an insurance patient that I'm exclusively marketing now for insurance patients.
Yeah. So like Cigna, for example, is a great example where like a patient that has Cigna, that's the patient I want. I want that insurance plan.
Give me Cigna at MetLife any day. I'm happy.
Oh yeah, big time. That's like a $400 appointment for their new patient appointment in my office.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I want to put an $89 coupon on there when I can get $400 for doing a cleaning and x-rays? You know what I mean? Like, it makes no sense to me. I still can't wrap my mind around why people hate it so much. It's just,
you're in the minority here though.
Yeah. And my hope is that people start realizing a lot of the minorities that are actually, insurance companies love dentists because they just take their fees as they say they are. And they just don't like look into the rules and stipulations of these people's plans. And they don't use them to their advantage. It's very easy to complain about a, $800 crown or whatever you're complaining about, a $600 crown or whatever. But, you can also use the plan to your advantage and get the benefits that come with it.
Yeah, and that's a path I've embarked on the last couple of months of my practice, actually really doing the insurance verification and insurance maximization. And the things we've found as far as like some covered services, fluoride, or even a couple like oral cancer screenings, like we're getting a lot of those that we're discovering that we never knew about. And I don't think a lot of offices really either have a service or take the time themselves to do it of actually maximizing that benefit.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of work to get it set up, but once it's in place, it's free money that you get all day, every day, and so like that's the benefit of taking insurance. So like 97% insurance patients, like my next question would be, how are you maximizing their benefits before we complain about them and cut them?
Yeah. Well, if you like that rant, I'm sure we're going to get into that rant more often on these shows. So it's coming more. I do want to share. So this doc emailed me after we talked. He had some cool things to say. I want to read one line. So he said, "Thank you very much for this. I've been pushing so hard and feeling this pressure to get certain metrics, do so much continuing education, be present at home with family and hit certain goals. And realizing that the only person putting this pressure on myself is me takes a huge burden off my shoulders." So this doc, I think, was able to really get that kind of let go of some of that pressure he's holding on himself and a lot of the guilt for his past not hitting goals. And it was really cool to see. He wrote me a much longer message, but I guess, I'll keep that to myself and my own enjoyment. But it's just nice to see how he was able to take something from our talk, and just really cool to see.
So are we 0 for 2 on having a debate when we said we're going to? Because we both kind of agree that this guy's a solo.
Yeah, well, I was expecting you to stand strong with group, and that's how I'd like you to go going forward. I kind of like to know what your viewpoint's going to be, so I can easily.
There's this stereotype out there that I'm just all about group practice, and my hope is to disprove that. But I guess for me, whenever I hear somebody talking about group practice, I kind of read between the lines. And are they somebody that can handle? Do they have the stomach lining to really get to them to where they need to go? And feeling super inadequate or not living up to yourself for 59% overhead making $600K, those are not the ingredients to a great group practice recipe here. You know what I mean? That's going to make it brutal. And I do want to share one thing, and this is on a personal note. It does apply to this episode because there was something he said that really stuck out to me. He said, I think it was in part 1, where he said that I just feel like I should be further along right now. And that, I think, is such a common sentiment. And I was at the 1-year mark of my acquisition feeling like, I was like, I should be way further along. And somebody that I really look up to, Paul Etchison, is somebody that, he did a startup, but we have, I think my vision and his vision, his vision is a lot more formed than mine because he's been at it longer. And so I got on the phone with him, and we kind of, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I offered as much value to him as he offered to me, but we kind of chatted back and forth. And the thing I really took away from him was he's been at that for 9 years, and I've been at it for 1. And I think sometimes we really expect ourselves to be a lot further along than what is realistic. And so, if this guy were to look at like, what is he's a 2015 grad, he said.
Yeah.
So 4 years out of school, go talk to 10 of your classmates. You'll feel a lot better about yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, just to pick 10 random guys. And I think we kind of live in our own world where things that are not that probable should be very possible, and so this guy he's very far along. I mean, he's doing great. It's sometimes hard to recognize that when you think you should be further along. And for me, I very much had that experience. And, I talked to Paul and I got a lot from him, but the biggest thing I got was that time. I haven't had any time, and so, that patience factor, that's very important. I don't have it. That was something that I was very thankful for him for kind of talking to me and just being able to pick his brain. But, I think if I could offer anything to anybody is that if you're feeling like you're not far along yet, like really challenge that belief because it's probably not that accurate.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, George. That's extremely accurate, especially in the world of dentistry that we are in. We're in that younger generation kind of go-getter, high achievers, the top 5% of young dentists is our community. And it's easy to forget where that puts you amongst, like you said, your classmates. I mean, I came from a class of 190 students, 2016. I bet I couldn't count on more than 2 hands how many even own practices, let alone like are hitting certain numbers. So thank you for that. It really puts things in perspective as far as this doc.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'll add is you were doing a lot of one of our special sauces here at Shared Practices Coaching is our percentile ranks that we have with practice by numbers. Part of our relationship with them is really giving us information that's not available. And that is also, I want to like disclaimer that information with it's all practice by numbers users. It's not all dentists. So I guess if you were to poll all dentists on the number of them that have practice by numbers, it'd probably be like the more successful ones are going to go get metrics-based software. So you're like being in the 20th percentile is not like the 20th percentile of the country. It's the 20th percentile of all the people who use that software.
Right.
And so, you're kind of you're on the varsity team and you're comparing yourself to other varsity practices. So, I think that's like, but when you hit the 90th percentile on something, like I have a hygienist in the 90th percentile on fluoride, and that's like, that's pretty cool. That's what you're
working there. She's like started at the 5th percentile. Now she's at like 25th percentile. We're coming for you.
Yeah, but it's just when you have those moments, it's very gratifying. But then when you don't, like my treatment planning is probably in the 40th, and that's probably where I'm at, to be honest. There's a lot of great dentists on practice by numbers. So I think at the same time, I'd like to, when you hear those stats, don't be like, oh, this guy sucks. It's like, there's some things where he's just not as good as the rest of the varsity guys. And that's okay.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good. We'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.